For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Rain streaked down the glass walls behind Adrian in silver lines while the jazz music continued somewhere in the penthouse like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I could feel it. The air itself felt heavier now, charged with something sharp and invisible that pressed against my lungs every time I tried to breathe. "I can explain," I whispered, even though I had no idea what explanation could possibly fix this. Adrian studied me quietly. That was the terrifying thing about him. He never reacted the way normal people did. No raised voice. No panic. Just that calm expression that somehow felt worse. He set the whiskey glass down on the marble counter with careful precision before loosening the cuff of his sleeve. "You should not have opened that email." His voice stayed soft, controlled, but underneath it, I heard exhaustion. Like this was a problem he had been trying to prevent for a very long time. "Those pictures," I said, my throat tightening. "Why do they have pictures of me?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward the windows overlooking Manhattan and stared down at the rain-soaked streets 30 floors below us. The city lights reflected across his broad shoulders in cold blue streaks. "Because someone wanted to know if you mattered to me." A chill slid down my spine. "And do I?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Adrian turned slowly. His eyes met mine, unreadable as ever. "That is what worries me." Silence swallowed the room again. I stood from the couch too quickly, my pulse pounding hard enough to hurt. "I think I should leave." The second I said it, something shifted in his expression. Not anger. Calculation. Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He glanced at the screen once before slipping it back into his jacket. "No," the word landed softly. "Final." "No." My voice cracked slightly. "You do not get to tell me I cannot leave." Normally, I would agree with you. He walked closer again, slow enough that I had time to step backward if I wanted to. But I did not. Tonight is different. Thunder rolled outside, low and distant. I folded my arms tightly across my chest to stop my hands from shaking. "Who are you, Adrian?" For the first time since I met him 3 months ago, he looked tired instead of powerful, human instead of untouchable, someone who should have stayed far away from you. Another notification buzzed from the closed laptop. Both of us looked toward it instantly. Adrian's jaw tightened. He crossed the room, opened the screen halfway, and read whatever appeared there. The temperature in the penthouse seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What?" I asked quietly. He closed the laptop again. "Your apartment building has had 2 unknown visitors in the last 20 minutes. My stomach dropped. "What?" "Black SUV. Parked across the street." He grabbed his coat from the back of a chair. "One man stayed in the vehicle. The other entered your building and left 4 minutes later." My mind raced violently trying to catch up. "How would you even know that?" Adrian looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Because I already had people watching your building." Fear hit me first, then confusion, then something stranger. "You were watching me?" "Protecting you." "From what?" His gaze darkened slightly. "From exactly this." My phone suddenly buzzed in my pocket, so loudly I nearly jumped. Unknown number. One new message. I stared at the screen while my heartbeat thundered in my ears. Then I opened it. A single photo loaded slowly beneath the rain-gray light of the penthouse. It was another picture of me, taken tonight, through the windows of Adrian's penthouse. The message underneath read only 6 words. "Now we know where you are." My hand started shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. The photo on the screen was grainy from the rain outside, but it was unmistakably me standing beside Adrian's window only minutes ago. Whoever took it had been close. Too close. "Oh my God," I whispered. Adrian stepped forward and took the phone carefully from my hand. His expression hardened the second he saw the image. Not surprised. Not confused. Like this confirmed something he already feared. He typed quickly into his own phone before slipping both devices into his coat pocket. "We are leaving." "Leaving where?" "Somewhere they cannot reach you tonight." My chest tightened instantly. "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. Adrian paused near the elevator hallway and looked back at me. "Claire, you do not get to decide that for me." I hated how small my voice sounded inside that massive penthouse. Outside, lightning flashed across the Manhattan skyline, turning the rain silver for half a second before darkness swallowed everything again. Adrian walked back slowly until he stood directly in front of me, close enough that I could smell cedarwood and rain on his coat. "Listen carefully," he said quietly. "The people behind that message are not bluffing. They do not send warnings unless they already know where to find someone. Then call the police. The moment I said it, something almost sad crossed his face. The police cannot protect you from this. How would you know? Silence. That terrifying silence again. Somewhere below us, a siren echoed through the wet streets before fading into the storm. Adrian exhaled slowly and loosened the expensive watch at his wrist like he suddenly could not stand the pressure of it anymore. Because some of the men looking for you wear badges. Cold spread through my stomach. I stared at him, trying to decide if this was real or if I had somehow stepped into someone else's nightmare. 3 months ago, Adrian Moretti had been nothing more than a wealthy client with impossible standards and unreadable eyes. A man who owned hotels, restaurants, half of downtown real estate according to gossip online. Now I was standing barefoot in his penthouse while strangers tracked my movements through Manhattan. Why me? I whispered. I opened one email. No, Adrian's voice dropped lower. You opened the wrong email. Thunder cracked loudly overhead this time, shaking the windows hard enough to make me jump. Adrian noticed immediately. Of course he did. He noticed everything. His gaze softened for one brief second before disappearing behind that controlled mask again. Pack a bag. I am not going anywhere with you. You already are. The certainty in his voice terrified me more than shouting would have. I stepped backward instinctively. I do not even know who you are. Adrian looked at me for a long moment that felt painfully honest compared to everything else tonight. That is the only reason you are still safe. Before I could answer, the elevator chimed softly from the far side of the penthouse. Adrian's entire posture changed instantly. His shoulders tightened. His eyes sharpened. Predator stillness. He moved in front of me without hesitation, placing himself between me and the hallway leading to the elevator doors. Stay behind me, he said quietly. My pulse hammered violently in my throat. Who is that? Adrian reached inside his jacket slowly. Calmly. Someone who was not invited. The elevator doors began to slide open beneath the cold gold lights of the penthouse entrance while rain battered the windows behind us, and somewhere deep in my chest, I realized my normal life had just ended forever. The elevator doors opened slowly, revealing 2 men in dark suits standing beneath the soft gold lights of the hallway. Neither of them looked surprised to see Adrian waiting. One was older, maybe late 50s, silver hair slicked back neatly, rain clinging to the shoulders of his charcoal coat. The younger man beside him kept one hand near his jacket, while his sharp eyes scanned the room with cold efficiency before landing briefly on me. The older man sighed the moment he saw Adrian. You are making this more complicated than it needs to be. Adrian did not move. You should not be here, Victor. The older man stepped out of the elevator calmly. Expensive shoes against polished marble. Controlled. Dangerous in the same quiet way Adrian was. And yet here I am. His eyes shifted toward me for half a second. Not cruel. Not kind either. Evaluating. Like I had suddenly become part of a problem no one expected. My stomach tightened harder. Adrian. I whispered carefully. Who is this? Someone you do not speak to. Adrian answered without looking away from the man approaching him. Victor smiled faintly at that. Still protective. Interesting. Rain hammered harder against the windows now, turning the city beyond the penthouse into blurred silver streaks. The younger man near the elevator stayed. Perfectly still, almost blending into the shadows. Security. Not bodyguard energy exactly. Something colder. More disciplined. Victor finally stopped a few feet away from Adrian and loosened his gloves one finger at a time. The message should not have reached her. Adrian's jaw tightened. I know. Then someone close to you is leaking information. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Familiar. Like this was not the first dangerous conversation they had shared. I folded my arms tightly around myself, trying to steady my breathing. Can someone please tell me what is happening? Victor looked at me fully for the first time. His pale gray eyes sharpened slightly. You saw something you were never meant to see, Miss Bennett. That does not explain why strangers are taking pictures of me. No, Victor agreed quietly. It explains why you are still alive. Cold swept through me instantly. Adrian stepped slightly closer to me, almost unconsciously blocking part of Victor's view. Enough. Victor studied Adrian for a long moment before giving the smallest nod. You always did become reckless when emotions were involved. Adrian's expression darkened instantly. Careful. The warning in his voice felt razor thin. Victor raised one hand calmly. I came here to help you, not fight with you. Another flash of lightning illuminated the penthouse, washing everyone in cold white light for a split second. I realized then how exhausted Adrian looked beneath all that control. His eyes were shadowed, his shoulders tense like he had been carrying pressure for days without sleeping. Victor turned toward the windows overlooking Manhattan. 3 names were compromised tonight. 2 already disappeared. My pulse stumbled painfully. Disappeared? Victor ignored the question entirely. The people behind this think the girl matters to you. Adrian stayed silent. Victor looked back slowly. Tell me honestly, are they wrong? The room went still. Even the storm outside seemed quieter for one impossible second. Adrian looked at me then. Really looked at me. Not like a boss calculating risk. Not like a man protecting a witness. Something deeper. More dangerous. My chest tightened. Unexpectedly beneath the weight of it. Finally, Adrian spoke. That is none of your business. Victor's expression changed instantly. Tiny. Almost invisible. But enough. He understood. Which meant something terrible had just been confirmed without Adrian actually saying it aloud. Victor exhaled slowly and reached into his coat pocket before placing a black keycard on the marble counter. There is a safe house in Queens. Private floor. No digital records. Take her there tonight. Adrian glanced at the card but did not pick it up immediately. And if I refuse? Victor's eyes drifted toward me one last time. Then next time they send a photograph, it may not be a warning. The drive to Queens felt unreal. Rain blurred across the black SUV windows while Manhattan disappeared behind us in fractured gold lights and wet reflections. Nobody spoke for the first 10 minutes. Adrian sat beside me in the back seat, one arm resting near the door, his attention constantly shifting between the road ahead and the mirrors outside. Across from us sat the younger man from the penthouse elevator. Luca. I had learned his name only because Adrian said it once into the phone during the ride. Luca barely moved the entire trip. Just watched the streets with the kind of alertness that made me understand this was not temporary fear for them. This was routine. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag while exhaustion and adrenaline twisted together inside my chest. I still think this is insane, I said quietly. Adrian did not look at me immediately. It is. Then take me home. No, the answer came instantly. Calm. Absolute. I turned toward him sharply. You cannot keep controlling every decision I make. Adrian finally looked at me then. Streetlights slid across his face in flashes of gold and shadow as the SUV passed through empty intersections slick with rainwater. Claire, 2 hours ago you were worried about a design presentation. Now someone is tracking your movements in real time. His voice stayed low. Your normal life no longer exists tonight. The truth of that hurt more than I expected. I looked away before he could see it. Outside, Queens looked different after. Midnight. Smaller somehow. Quieter. Rain pooled against cracked sidewalks beneath old apartment windows glowing soft yellow in the dark. We finally turned down a narrow side street lined with brick buildings and shuttered storefronts before stopping in front of what looked like an abandoned warehouse. No signs. No lights except one flickering lamp above a steel side entrance. This is the safe house. I asked carefully. Luca opened the passenger door first and stepped into the rain without answering. Adrian reached for the umbrella beside him before holding it over me the second I stepped outside. The gesture caught me off guard. Strange how a man connected to something this dangerous still noticed things like rain hitting my shoulders. The warehouse door opened before we even reached it. Another man in a dark coat nodded once at Adrian and led us inside without a word. Warm air wrapped around me instantly. The interior looked nothing like the outside. Modern furniture. Soft lighting. Clean marble floors. Quiet jazz playing somewhere deeper inside. Safe. Too safe. Like someone had designed the place specifically to make people forget they were hiding. Adrian removed his coat slowly while Luca disappeared down another hallway after exchanging a brief glance with him. I noticed everyone here communicated with almost no words. Tiny movements. Looks. Silence. How many people know about this place? I asked. Very few. Adrian loosened the collar of his shirt before walking toward the kitchen area. That is why we are here. I stood near the entrance awkwardly, suddenly aware that I was still wearing borrowed fear like a second skin. So what now? Adrian poured water into a glass and handed it to me first before answering. Now you stay here until I know who sent those messages. And if I do not want to stay? Adrian leaned one hand against the marble counter beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him without touching. You think I am trapping you? Are you not? His eyes held mine for several long seconds, tired blue-gray beneath the dim kitchen lights. If I wanted to trap you, Claire, you would not still have a choice. The honesty of that sent a strange chill through me because somehow I believed him completely. My pulse stumbled slightly when his gaze dropped toward my trembling hands wrapped around the water glass. Softer this time, less guarded. You are shaking. I think I am in shock. Adrian nodded once like he understood something deeper than the words themselves. Then, very gently, he reached out and adjusted the sleeve of my sweater where rainwater still clung to the fabric near my wrist. Barely a touch. Careful. Controlled. Dangerous in an entirely different way now. Get some sleep, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be worse. I did not sleep. I tried. Around 3 in the morning, one of the women working inside the safe house showed me to a bedroom on the second floor with soft gray walls, clean white sheets, and windows overlooking the rain-covered rooftops of Queens. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt staged, like safety built by people who understood danger too well. I sat on the edge of the bed still wearing my sweater, staring at the city lights outside while my mind replayed every moment from the penthouse over and over again. The email, the photographs, Adrian's face when he realized they were watching me. Somewhere downstairs, a clock chimed softly at 4 in the morning. By 5, I gave up pretending to sleep and slipped quietly into the hallway. The safe house was almost silent. Warm amber lights glowed low against dark walls while distant jazz drifted from another room. I followed the sound carefully until I reached the kitchen downstairs. Adrian stood alone beside the counter with his sleeves rolled to his forearms, one hand braced against the marble while the other held a steaming cup of coffee. He looked exhausted. Not the polished kind of tired wealthy men joked about after long meetings. Real exhaustion. The kind that settled into someone's bones. He glanced up the second I entered the room. You should be asleep. His voice sounded rougher than usual. You should too. A faint shadow of amusement crossed his face before disappearing almost instantly. I moved toward the kitchen slowly, noticing files spread across the counter beside him. Names, photographs, maps of Lower Manhattan. Adrian calmly turned one folder upside down before I could read anything else. You always hide things that quickly? I asked softly. Only the dangerous ones. He took another sip of coffee while studying me over the rim of the cup. Did you eat anything? The question surprised me enough that I blinked. What? You have not eaten since yesterday afternoon. I stared at him. How do you even know that? Adrian set the cup down carefully. Because you stopped to buy almond milk coffee every day at 8:15 on Lexington Avenue, and yesterday you skipped breakfast entirely. Cold slid through me instantly. You memorized my coffee order? Claire. He exhaled quietly, like he was already tired of this conversation before it started. I had security watching you weeks before tonight. My chest tightened hard. Why? Adrian stayed silent for a few seconds too long. Rain tapped softly against the high windows behind him while the city outside slowly turned pale blue with approaching dawn. Finally, he looked at me fully. Because someone tried to access your apartment building cameras 2 weeks ago. Every nerve in my body went still. What? At the time, I thought you were connected to me by accident. A potential pressure point. He looked away briefly before continuing. Then I realized they were interested in you long before they realized you mattered to me. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, harder to breathe inside. You could have warned me. And told you what exactly? Adrian's voice stayed calm, but something emotional slipped underneath it for the first time. That strangers were watching your apartment? That your phone had likely been cloned? That your normal life was already compromised before you even opened that email? I folded my arms tightly across myself, trying to steady the panic rising inside my chest. This is insane. Yes. People do not live like this. Adrian's eyes met mine again, colder now. Sadder somehow. People in my world do. Silence settled heavily between us. Somewhere upstairs, footsteps moved briefly through the hallway before fading again. I stared down at the coffee cup warming my hands while my thoughts spiraled uncontrollably. What exactly are you involved in, Adrian? He leaned back slightly against the marble counter, shadows cutting sharply across his face beneath the dim kitchen lights. If I answer that honestly, he said quietly, you will never look at me the same way again. Adrian's words stayed trapped inside my head long after the conversation ended. You will never look at me the same way again. The strange thing was, I already did not know how to look at him anymore. By noon, the rain had finally stopped, leaving Queens wrapped in cold gray sunlight and wet pavement that reflected the sky like broken mirrors. The safe house stayed quiet most of the morning. Men moved in and out of rooms, speaking softly into earpieces while phones buzzed constantly somewhere deeper inside the building. Nobody explained anything to me. Nobody treated me like a guest either. More like something fragile being kept out of sight. Around 1 in the afternoon, I wandered into the living room carrying a cup of untouched coffee and found Luca sitting alone near the window, cleaning a pair of reading glasses with surprising care for someone who looked permanently dangerous. He glanced up briefly when he noticed me. You should not walk around alone. I am inside a locked building, I replied tiredly. Where exactly am I supposed to go? Something almost like amusement touched the corner of his mouth before disappearing. I sat across from him carefully. Can I ask you something? You are going to anyway. I stared down into my coffee for a second before speaking. What is Adrian really involved in? Luca stayed quiet long enough that I thought he might ignore me completely. Then he folded the glasses slowly and set them aside. You know his last name. That does not answer my question. It should. I frowned slightly. I am serious. Luca leaned back against the chair, watching the street below through the rain-streaked windows. Adrian Moretti owns hotels, restaurants, shipping companies, security firms. On paper, he is a businessman. And off paper, silence again. Everyone around Adrian seemed to speak in fragments and unfinished warnings. Finally, Luca looked at me directly. Off paper, people listen when he talks. A chill moved through me despite the warmth inside the room. Victor called this his world. Luca nodded once. It is. And what exactly does that mean? Luca studied me carefully then, like he was deciding how much truth I could survive at once. There are families in this city that built power long before politicians and corporations learned how to hide theirs. Money, favors, loyalty, secrets. His expression darkened slightly. Adrian was born into one of those families. My pulse slowed strangely. Not from relief. From recognition. Suddenly, all the impossible pieces started fitting together. The armed security. The encrypted emails. The fear in Victor's eyes when he realized Adrian cared about me. So he is... I could not even finish the sentence. Luca did it for me. Yes. The room felt colder instantly. I looked toward the hallway unconsciously, half expecting Adrian to appear there like he always somehow did whenever people spoke about him. And everyone here just follows his orders? Luca gave a quiet laugh under his breath. No, his eyes lifted toward the second floor thoughtfully. They follow him because he keeps people alive. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed softly above us. Adrian descended the staircase, adjusting the cuffs of a dark charcoal shirt, his expression unreadable as always. But the second his eyes landed on me, something shifted there. Subtle, protective, dangerous. Luca stood immediately without being asked. Respect. Real respect. Adrian glanced between us once. What are you discussing? Coffee, Luca answered smoothly. Adrian looked unconvinced, but let it go. He walked toward me slowly while loosening the expensive watch at his wrist. I need to leave for a few hours. My stomach tightened instantly before I could stop it. Leave? Adrian noticed the reaction immediately. Of course he did. There are things I need to handle personally. And I just stay here? Yes. His tone softened slightly. You will be safer. I hated how much those words mattered to me already. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear it. Do not open the doors for anyone. Except Luca. You really think someone will come here? Adrian held my gaze for one long second too many. I think someone already knows where you are. The safe house felt different after Adrian left. Emptier somehow. Too quiet. By evening, the sky over Queens had turned deep gray again. Heavy clouds pressing low over the rooftops while cold wind rattled softly against the warehouse windows. I sat curled into the corner of the living room couch, pretending to read one of the books I found upstairs, but I had reread the same sentence 6 times without understanding a single word. My attention kept drifting toward the entrance every time footsteps echoed somewhere in the building. Waiting for Adrian had become something dangerous all on its own. Around 7:30, Luca entered the room holding his phone with an expression I instantly did not like. What happened? I asked before he could speak. Luca glanced toward the hallway behind him first. Habit. Caution. Then he looked back at me. Adrian is delayed. My chest tightened unexpectedly. Delayed because of what? Business. The answer came too quickly. Too rehearsed. I set the book aside slowly. That means something bad happened, does not it? Luca stayed silent, which was answer enough. Rain started again outside, tapping softly against the windows while tension settled heavily through the room. I stood and walked toward the kitchen mostly because sitting still suddenly felt impossible. I hate this, I whispered. Luca leaned against the doorway, watching me carefully. Nobody chooses this life willingly. Adrian did. Luca's expression darkened slightly. You think he had a choice? Before I could answer, every light inside the safe house flickered once. Then twice. My pulse stumbled instantly. Luca straightened away from the doorway, so fast the movement barely looked human. Stay here. Luca. The lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the room except for faint city glow leaking through the rain-streaked windows. Somewhere deeper in the building, a sharp alarm began beeping softly. Controlled. Quiet. Nothing like a fire alarm. Worse somehow. Luca moved instantly toward the hallway while speaking. Into the earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Low Italian phrases I could not fully understand slipped through the darkness. My heartbeat thundered painfully in my ears. What is happening? I whispered. Luca turned briefly toward me. Upstairs. Now. Fear finally hit hard enough to freeze my legs for half a second. Then another sound echoed from somewhere near the front entrance downstairs. Not loud. Just metal against metal. Deliberate. Luca cursed softly under his breath before pulling something from inside his jacket. I looked away immediately, panic rising fast in my chest. Claire. His voice sharpened. Go. I ran upstairs, gripping the railing so tightly my hands hurt, while darkness swallowed the hallways around me. Emergency backup lights flickered dim red against the walls, turning the safe house into something unrecognizable. My breathing sounded too loud. Too fast. At the end of the upstairs hallway sat the bedroom Adrian had given me. I stumbled inside and locked the door instantly before backing away from it. Silence. Heavy silence. Then footsteps downstairs. Voices. Muffled. My pulse hammered harder. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed Adrian immediately. 1 ring. 2. 3. Voicemail. No. 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 I whispered, trying again. Suddenly, a vibration buzzed from the desk near the bed. I froze. Adrian's laptop. He must have left it here accidentally before leaving earlier. The screen lit up automatically in the darkness. 1 incoming encrypted message. My stomach dropped the second I saw the sender icon. The same black symbol from the email. Another message appeared beneath it before I could stop myself from reading. We know you are alone now. Cold terror spread through me instantly. Then came 3 soft knocks against the bedroom door behind me. Calm. Patient. Followed by Adrian's voice. Claire. Open the door. Relief crashed through me so hard my knees nearly gave out. I rushed toward the door before something stopped me at the last second. Adrian never called me Claire like that. Not softly. Not uncertainly. And then another voice downstairs shouted something sharp in Italian while footsteps thundered violently through the safe house. Below, my blood turned to ice. Because whoever stood outside my bedroom door was not Adrian. My hand froze inches from the door handle while rain slammed against the windows hard enough to shake the glass. Every instinct inside me screamed the same thing at once. Do not open it. The silence outside the bedroom door stretched painfully tight. Then came another knock. Softer this time. Patient. Claire. The fake calm in the voice made my stomach twist violently. We need to leave. Now. I backed away slowly instead, my pulse crashing against my ribs so hard it hurt. Downstairs, another shout echoed through the safe house, followed by hurried footsteps and the sharp sound of something breaking somewhere below. The emergency lights flickered dark red against the walls, turning the entire room into a nightmare soaked in shadows. My phone trembled violently in my hand. 1 new text message. Adrian, do not open any doors. I am coming to you. Relief hit so hard it almost made me dizzy. Almost. Because a second later, the voice outside changed completely. Colder now. Less patient. Claire. Silence. Then 1 final sentence. He cannot protect you anymore. My breath caught painfully. Heavy footsteps moved away from the door seconds later, disappearing back into the hallway outside. I stood frozen in place listening to my own heartbeat, while every terrifying possibility raced through my head at once. Then suddenly, another sound cut through the chaos downstairs. A familiar voice. Adrian. Sharp. Controlled. Furious in a way I had never heard before. The entire safe house seemed to shift around it. More footsteps thundered through the halls, followed by silence, so abrupt it made my ears ring. Then my bedroom door rattled once beneath a hard knock. Claire. This time, I knew instantly it was him. I rushed toward the door and unlocked it with shaking hands. Adrian stepped inside quickly before locking it behind him again. His dark coat was soaked from the rain outside, drops of water sliding slowly down the sharp lines of his jaw, while his chest rose harder than usual beneath his black shirt. His eyes found mine immediately. Scanning. Checking. Relief flashed across his face. So quickly I almost thought I imagined it. Are you hurt? I shook my head instantly. No. Adrian exhaled quietly and closed his eyes for half a second like the answer physically weakened him. Then his hands gently settled against my shoulders. Warm. Steady. Real. Did anyone touch you? No. My voice trembled despite trying to stay calm. Someone pretended to be you outside the door. Adrian's jaw tightened instantly. Dangerous stillness settled across his expression before he looked toward the hallway behind him. I know. Fear crawled cold through my chest again. What is happening? Adrian stayed silent too long. That silence again. Always silence before truth. Finally, he looked back at me. There is someone inside my organization feeding information to the people tracking you. Because of the email? Because of me. The honesty of it hit harder than fear somehow. Rainwater dripped slowly from the sleeve of his coat onto the hardwood floor, while distant sirens echoed faintly outside across Queens. Adrian, I swallowed hard. Why are they doing this? His eyes darkened painfully. Because they know you matter to me now. The room went completely still around us. Even the storm outside seemed quieter for one impossible second. I stared at him, trying to process the words while my heartbeat stumbled uncontrollably somewhere deep in my chest. Adrian looked exhausted suddenly. Not powerful, not untouchable, just a man standing in the middle of a collapsing world trying to keep one person safe inside it. I never wanted you involved in any of this, he said quietly. Then why did you let me stay close to you? A shadow crossed his face. Regret maybe, or something far more dangerous. Slowly, Adrian lifted one hand and brushed a damp strand of hair away from my face with surprising gentleness. Because every time you walked away, he said softly, I found another reason to follow. My breath caught completely. Somewhere downstairs, Luca shouted something urgent in Italian, followed by the sound of hurried movement through the safe house again. Adrian's expression hardened instantly as reality crashed back into the room around us. He took my hand firmly in his. We have to go. I looked up at him while red emergency lights flickered across the walls and thunder rolled low over Queens outside. If I leave with you now, I whispered, there is no going back, is there? Adrian held my gaze for one long, devastating second before answering. No. When an ordinary young woman accidentally opens a private email on a powerful mafia boss's laptop, her entire world changes in a single night. What begins as a quiet evening inside a luxury Manhattan penthouse quickly turns into a dangerous spiral of secrets, surveillance, betrayal, and forbidden emotions. This dark romance story blends emotional tension, cinematic storytelling, and psychological suspense. As the young designer discovers, she has become the target of people hidden deep inside the city's criminal underworld. The mafia boss is cold, controlled, and feared by everyone around him. Yet the closer danger gets to her, the more protective he becomes. As hidden